soon.
He is an unstoppable killing machine.
What the hell is going on?
Jason Voorhees!
Guys, it's okay. He just wanted his machete back. Uh-oh.
He's been modified.
Oh, you think?
You guys might want to run.
Jason X.
I don't think he's out there.
Why don't you stick your head out and have a peek?
Rated R, coming soon.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my rant on the 2001 slasher sequel in space, Jason X. Now, this is another one that over the years has gotten a bit of a cult following, and it's another film that over the years I have tried to appreciate or enjoy for what it is, but each time it just gets lost in space because this film sucks. This film sucks on so many levels. It's not the worst film in the franchise. That dishonor would still go to Jason Takes Manhattan for me because of its sheer laziness and how incompetent and idiotic and bad it is in so many different ways. How lame the characters are, how bad the directing is. It's got so many issues. But this film is not that much better. It's directed by Jim Issac, who prior to this worked on a lot of films as an effects artist, and he directed the film The Horror Show. And I really like The Horror Show, House 3. I think it's an underrated movie. I enjoy that film quite a bit. I thought his direction was actually really good in that film. So I don't know what really happened to his talent, because it really isn't on the screen in the same capacity as it was with The Horror Show. Maybe it's because The Horror Show is a different kind of film. It's a movie that has more of a dark tone to it, so maybe that's why Jim Issac's style works, or maybe it's just a better film in terms of its concept, in terms of the execution, and Jim Issac had more to work with as a result. But this direction, it's Sci-Fi Channel movie quality for me. It's one of those really unimpressive, below average kind of efforts from a directorial standpoint. It's one of those things where the direction at times makes the film appear as if it's some really poor B movie. And it doesn't have the epic size and scope that I think the film is trying to go for. If you're going to take Jason into space, then I actually think a good idea would have been to make it look like it's a big grand spectacle. But instead it looks like an episode of some cheap sci-fi show. I really am not that enthusiastic about the direction here. The best that it gets is during some sequences of action, but even then it's a letdown because the way that scenes are shot, it's rather lethargic. These sequences never really feel like they have the adrenaline rush that I think the scenes are trying to go for. The film's advertising used the song "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor," and that song is way more exciting and high octane than anything in the film for me. Now, there are a couple kills in this that I do like quite a bit. The cryogenic kill with the liquid nitrogen, and the one sequence where one guy literally gets screwed by Jason. But the rest of the kills, they're just there for me. Some of them are just really bland and forgettable. And it does have a high body count, but I didn't really care that much because I didn't really give a shit about most of the cast. And going back to the direction, it's just very flat, very lifeless, very dull because it doesn't really have moments where the camera does something that is creative or interesting. This seems like a film that would have been prime for that kind of directing, but instead you just got TV movie quality direction, which is to the detriment of the movie. But the direction, as bad as it is at times, it's not as bad as the writing. Todd Farmer needed another writer. I don't think he probably could have gotten another writer, though. It's one of those films where I think he did the best that he could with what he had. This concept was stupid and dumb from the beginning, so what he tried to do is write a tongue-in-cheek film that was trying to be in on the joke, but it wasn't clever enough to really get the most out of that concept, and as a result, a lot of the humor just completely bombed. Now, the whole plot is just absurd. I love how people think Jason Goes to Hell is the moment where the franchise hit its lowest point, but Jason X is acceptable. I don't understand that. And it's fine if you like the film. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever, but the critics who say Jason Goes to Hell is much worse, that's the worst film in the series, but Jason X, that's a fun movie. I don't understand why you can't enjoy Jason Goes to Hell. If you enjoy Jason X. A fair amount of people can, but I just don't understand the criticisms where people are super harsh on Jason Goes to Hell, but lenient on Jason X. Because Jason X, you take Jason to space, which is a fucking joke in itself. That was something that a lot of people would just crack every now and then. They would just crack a joke about Jason going to space. What's the next installment going to be? Jason in space? And then it actually happens for real, and they're like, what? What is this? I mean, multiple years prior to this film's release, there was a Mad TV skit called Jason Takes NASA, which was a parody of Apollo 13, and they had Jason Voorhees in there. And it's honestly pretty funny to watch that skit now because Jason X is a real thing. So they thought they were doing a parody of something that would never ever come to fruition in any way, shape, or form. And then in 2001, here comes an actual movie and not a skit on Mad TV or SNL. It's an actual fucking film. I will say this. The screenplay did make the right approach by taking things in a more tongue-in-cheek manner. Approaching the story in a more lighthearted, zany, over-the-top fashion. Because with this kind of concept, you can't really do it any other way. But, as a result, it leads to a lot of moments of pure cringe, and not the kind of moments that are really that enjoyable to watch in terms of how the cringe levels are. It's one of those movies where it also wastes a lot of potential. Uber Jason is a fun concept, but they do absolutely nothing with Uber Jason. All he does is just smash down doors and get sucked into space and then tackled by Brodsky, and then he falls like a shooting star onto Earth 2. And I guess it's supposed to be a setup where, oh, he's going to do a whole bunch of things on Earth 2 in a sequel, but that never happened. So what you have here is all this hype, all this buildup around Uber Jason, which is a cool looking design, and it's completely wasted. He does nothing. He doesn't there's no memorable kills, there's no anything. He just shows up, looks like a badass, a total beast, and just breaks down a bunch of metal doors and gets sucked out an airlock. That's really all that fucking happens with with Uber Jason. Oh, you have that scene in the virtual reality room where he recreates the sequence from A New Blood with the sleeping bag and kills some other teenagers, but it's all a simulation, so it's not a real kill. It doesn't fucking count. So what happens is the majority of any of the moments with Jason that are brutal or memorable in any fashion have nothing to do with Uber Jason. So Uber Jason is a complete, total waste. And the characters here are just one note, cannon fodder, don't give a fuck. I do not give a fuck about pretty much most of this cast. The idea of a character who gets stabbed by Jason and then gets frozen and then comes back to life many years later and has to fight Jason again. I like that idea. I like the idea of Rowan. I think it's a interesting idea and a potentially fun concept, but the character is completely weak and substandard to me. There's nothing to that character. She's completely boring. And I didn't mind Brodsky. I liked some aspects of Tsunoran and his robot KM-14. And I like the pilot guy and the engineer. But the main cast, the main characters, even the ones that I liked okay, I didn't love. So I had moments where I just tolerated some of them. And it never got past that point where I genuinely fell in love with any of these characters. So that hurt the film in terms of whatever kind of suspense or whatever kind of intrigue it might have had. And then the science fiction aspect fell flat because the production values were pathetic. This is an $11 million film, but it looks like it cost way less than that. The CGI in this is atrocious. It is laughably bad. It is Sci-Fi Channel levels of shit in terms of the production values and the CGI in particular. And there are some decent kills. The liquid nitrogen kill, it's a great effect. It's a good kill. I have no complaints about that. And there are some other moments of bloodshed that are fun, but I didn't get into the cast, I didn't get into the characters, I didn't get into the story, and with Uber Jason, they completely fucked it up and didn't really do anything. They gave you blue balls with Uber Jason. That's the best way to put it. The way that things are written, the way that things play out with Uber Jason, it's a massive case of blue balls. Now, the cast, like I said, they do what they can with what they have to work with, which is not a lot. Kane Hodder, once again, is really a total professional and a really great performer as Jason Voorhees. Kane still brought that intimidating presence, especially when he was Uber Jason. Like, that was really legitimately scary and imposing, despite the fact that it's kind of a ridiculous concept. But Kane sold it because of his ability to make things like that work. And that's what makes it even more of a shame that Uber Jason is wasted so much in this film. Because it wasted Kane's effort and what he put into it. And other than Kane, though, who else really is there in the cast that delivers a legitimately great performance? Maybe Peter Mensah as Brodsky? I liked Brodsky. I liked that character. I liked his performance overall. I didn't really care that much for Lexia Doig as Rowan. Lisa Ryder was just, oh my god, like her performance as KM was so bad it's good at times, but at other times it was just bad. It was just terrible. It's the kind of thing you would expect to see in a Star Trek knockoff or something. It was pretty terrible, pretty awful. Chuck Campbell, he was fine. The rest of the cast did not give a fuck, didn't care, except for maybe the pilot guy and engineer, because it seemed like they were having some fun, and they were the ones that had the most charisma or personality. The rest of the cast was just dumb teens, dumb horny teens, and the fucking asshole guy who's trying to sell Jason's body so he can make money, but I didn't really give a shit about that guy. I don't even remember what the fucking guy's name is. Well, what the fuck was his name? Yeah, I don't even remember what the fuck this guy's name is. So, the guy did nothing for me. He was like a scientist or something. Yeah, completely unremarkable in every fucking way. And the only other actor I want to mention is David Cronenberg, who played Dr. Wimmer in the prequel bit that took place in 2010. That was a really big surprise. I did not expect to see David Cronenberg in Jason X. And speaking of the prequel stuff, I mean, this is clearly yet another one-off. You can tell that this was intended to be a film that had its own continuity, which is another criticism people have with Jason Goes to Hell. It doesn't fit with the other films in the franchise. But this does? But yeah, the cast, not the best. Kane Hodder is honestly the best performer in the entire cast. The music by Harry Manfredini, absolutely fucking terrible. It was just a really shitty, bad, cheap sounding score. One of his worst. I don't know what was going on here. Why was Harry continuing to be the go-to guy? I don't understand this at this point. It's 2001. His style is really stale, and it would have been really refreshing to see some other composers' take on things. That isn't Fred Molan. Why couldn't they have asked Christopher Young? I would have loved to have heard what Christopher Young could have done with a Jason film, especially one that takes place in space. That's right in his wheelhouse. I would have loved to have seen Christopher Young do a score for Jason X. Instead, we've got Harry Manfredini doing his best sci-fi Friday the 13th renditions, and it just sounds like a bunch of B-sides or experimental music tracks. It doesn't really feel like a legitimate, solid score by any means. And in a lot of ways, the score hurts the film because it takes away from whatever kind of mood, atmosphere, or potential a fair amount of sequences have. And the cinematography was nothing that impressive by Derek V. Underschultz. The editing by David Handman, I'm not going to say the editing was really an issue because he did the best he could with the hand that he was dealt. I'm not going to say the editing was really egregious or really that much of a problem. But for a running time of about 92 minutes, it dragged. It really did for me because I wasn't really that captivated by the cast or the characters or the overall plot. Jason gets frozen in 2010. A bunch of researchers in the future discover his body. They resurrect this woman that was left for dead. She's trying to warn people about Jason. They're like, nah, whatever, he's dead. Of course, Jason regenerates, comes back to life, and starts killing people again. And they have to find a way to stop him. There's some fun gore. I like the scene where KM-14 kicks Jason's ass because it's actually pretty fucking badass in terms of the fight choreography, in terms of the effects when she shoots him with all these bullets and then blows his head off. That's a really great looking effect and a cool scene. And then he becomes Uber Jason, and you think it's going to lead to like some really epic, crazy gore with him ripping limbs off and just fucking people up right and left, but that never fucking happens. And then the movie ends with some really cringy, crappy CGI. It's one of those films that it's not much of an upgrade. It's a downgrade. It's a total downgrade when it comes to this franchise and the quality. I know there's probably more I can maybe say. I mean, there's some really bad lines of dialogue that definitely make you roll your eyes through the back of your own head. It's just a lame film that sucks on so many levels. That's the perfect way to put it. That's even a quote in the movie itself. So even the film knows it sucks. And I think some people think that's why it's good, because the film knows it's bad and it plays along with that. And that only goes so far, because you still have these characters who are dime a dozen and really don't add that much to the film and slow the pacing down because you don't really care whether Jason kills them or not. And then you have the same issues with Uber Jason, where they fuck it all up and waste all the potential and give you just the biggest case of blue balls ever. And it's just a really shitty sequel in a lot of different ways. So I don't know what else to say about Jason X, except thanks for watching my review, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.